Okay, so perhaps we'll start. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the screening and presentation of Women Performing Arts and Sports, Femmes en Performance by artists St-Laurent and Liliane Moussa as part of CAFKA's 2021 Biennial, Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost. My name is Caitlin Sutherland and I am CAFKA's program manager. Before I introduce the screening, I'd like to take this space to acknowledge the land CAFKA operates on. CAFKA operates within the region of Waterloo, located on the Haldeman Tract, which is the traditional territory of the Neutral, Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. The Haldeman Tract includes 6 miles from each side of the Grand River, beginning at Lake Erie and extending north to the riverhead. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy, also known as Six Nations of the Grand River, were granted this land to enjoy forever as part of the 1784 Haldeman Treaty with the British after the Haudenosaunee were dispossessed of their land in upstate New York following the American Revolution. The Haldeman Tract was reduced to less than 5% of this original territory in the over 200 years since, primarily through loss of land to encroaching settlers. The Haudenosaunee Great Law emphasizes collective responsibilities and rights, and with the principle of the dish with one spoon, a treaty extended with the Anishinaabe and the British, which stipulated that the land was to be shared equally, collectively, and with the utmost attention paid to peaceful relations and the conservation of lands for future generations, all signified in the connotation of a single spoon used by all to eat from a single dish. As we are joined today in this virtual space, it is important to also acknowledge that wherever in Canada we are presently tuning in from, all of what we term as Canada continues to operate under the violent project of settler colonialism. The settler colonial process continues to dispossess lands from the Indigenous peoples whose traditional territories we, as settlers, occupy today. As an organization composed of individual artists, arts workers, and community members with diverse backgrounds and histories, it is always our responsibility to learn, acknowledge, respect, and uphold the treaties made with Indigenous nations and respect the right to land and life on unceded territories whose traditional caretakers continue to resist colonial violence today. This evening, we are pleased to share the screening Women Performing Arts plus Sports, Femmes en Performance by artists St-Laurent and Liliane Moussa. Caroline and Liliane use the sports environment as an accessible tool to open dialogue on gender inequities within and beyond the athletic field. Caroline's St-Laurent's art and sport hybrid comes from a feminist analysis of the cult of performance. The rules of sport, its various disciplines, its places, its codes, its accessibility are for her fertile ground to question our high performance society, the inequality of its relationships, and the anxiety that results from them. Liliane Moussa is a dance artist and physiotherapist based in Montreal. In her creation, she's invested in analyzing the physical and social impacts of sports, events, and competitive environments. She questions the notions of individual performance and self-care in an effort to improve collective awareness and actions. After we screen the video, Caroline and Liliane will be joined by a special guest and rugby player, Rissaile Mouajou-Kenfack, followed by a Q&A. So without further ado, let's begin the screening.
Hello everyone, welcome to this performance. We are Liliane and Caroline. Thank you for being.
We want to thank all the athletes who participate to this project, the CAFKA team, Égal Action, Maud Turcot and Gabrielle Fortin-Taillon at the camera, and Gaël Scali at the sound.
We are in Montreal, Tiohtià:ke, on an indigenous territory that has never been ceded.
We are encouraging you to join us in this warm-up. Follow the person speaking. Do what you can. Don't push yourself. Engage your body and have fun.
Okay, so we're gonna start by doing squats. Sport performance is the manner in which sport and physical activity participation is measured. The goal is often to win, to score better than last time, or to improve. Also, sport performance includes discipline, productivity, repetition, money, chance, injury management, adrenaline, endorphin, team spirit, and hopefully enjoyment.
Now, performing arts. Performing arts include dance, theater, spoken words, performance action, music, circus. It describes any art form that uses the live body as the main medium.
Performance art is a discipline in fine arts. It takes place through actions executed by the artist or other participant. It may be live, documented, spontaneous, or written. In Quebec, we often call it performance, art action, pour vraiment le situer dans le champ des arts visuels, manœuvre ou intervention.
It includes the notions of time, space, body, and the presence of the artist. The notion of here and now, and the relation between the creator and the public. Whew.
Now, art and sport performance. The sport is used as a fertile ground to talk about performance code, inequalities, privileges, mostly white privileges, and justice.
It questions the notion of self-care and individual performance in an effort to improve collective awareness and actions.
The physical effort becomes an act of feminist resistance.
Vulnerability is our strength. Non?
Ouais.
Women are represented in less than 5% of all Canadian written and visual media related to sports.
Women represented 23% of board members, 17% of coaches, and 34% of referees, based on data collected by Sports Federation in Quebec between 2018 and 2019.
Guylaine Demers and her team of researchers analyzed 3 years of language used by sportscasters to describe athletes. Men were mostly called tall, strong, brilliant, brave, and aggressive. Women were called vulnerable, tired, distraught, and frustrated.
We still focus on the appearance of women athletes more than their performance. In photo reports, men are much more often captured in action, while women are in static position and sexualized.
Sportcasters, mostly men, white men, usually call women athletes by their first name and men athletes by their last name.
Data about the representation of athletes with disabilities in the media. Even Francis Ménard, the director of Parasport Québec, couldn't find any data, and he was really sorry about that.
There are equal amount of men and women participating to the Olympic Games. Yet, women represent 27% of airtime in the media and men 73%. Ouais.
There are still inequities in the salaries of men and women athletes. I'm just going to give the example of Canadian hockey team. They train 3 hours per day. They have to work 2 jobs to sustain themselves. They have to clean their equipment while men has their own equipment service. They are gold medalists and they don't even have a league.
Large study carried out by various countries in the world, including Canada. 1 in 7 athletes is suffering from sexual assaults or rape before the age of 18. This percentage increase for international level athletes, for athletes who belong to ethnic minorities and non-heterosexual groups.
In Canada, 59% of girls between the age of 3 and 17 participate in sports. Entering adolescence, it drops by 22%. So 37% of girls participate in sport. Being adult, it drops again by 21%. So 16% of women adults still participate. There are a lot of factors that are doing this, like the lack of time, the lack of motivation, the impression of not being good enough, and comments they receive while they were training. Mon entraîneur parlait de mon impulsion pitoyable. Il me disait que j'avais un piano sur le dos. In a positive way, I was called a bulldozer and a beefcake by my teammates, but I have been told that I'm too tiny for my position. J'ai un corps en V comme les garçons, épaules larges et presque pas de hanches. Parfois, c'est difficile de s'habiller girl. Je recevais des moqueries de la part des autres, car j'étais costaud et plus grande que les autres. Je me suis fait dire que je suis un garçon manqué car je fais du taekwondo, que c'est bizarre qu'une fille veuille se battre, que je veuille apprendre à me défendre ne leur venait pas l'idée. À un moment donné, j'avais perdu beaucoup de poids et tout le monde me complimentait. T'es tellement plus belle comme ça, alors que j'avais un trouble alimentaire important. La gymnastique au sol était une façon d'exprimer ma force et ma féminité. Mais j'ai reçu beaucoup de commentaires négatifs, notamment par d'autres gymnastes. On me disait que j'étais pétasse. Et ça m'est arrivé à moi. Des athlètes en CrossFit se sont fait demander si elles avaient pris des stéroïdes. Il y en a une qui s'est fait dire sur une appli de rencontre: malheureusement, je ne suis pas vraiment attirée par les femmes qui ressemblent à des hommes. Tu me ressembles presque. Je cherche plutôt une vraie femme. Quand je marche dans un lieu public, je me fais montrer du doigt, je me fais regarder et j'ai même des gens qui me disent en pleine face qu'ils ne veulent pas devenir musclés comme moi. Ça, c'est Michel Letendre, que je salue d'ailleurs. Elle dit: je suis fière d'être une femme et d'avoir ce corps. Grâce à lui, je fais des choses que je ne croyais pas possibles. Je passe un message de force, de finesse, de détermination et de féminité. Selon moi, ce sont ces valeurs que mon corps transmet. The false impression of justice in sport. Athletes are divided by categories, women and men. This is really binary. And they are also divided by gender or age. But there are so much more factors that will influence the performance, like the socioeconomic status and the background. There's also the family support, the place of birth, even the date of birth for the hockey players, and the skin color.
Caster Semenya, a black woman runner, has been banned from the Tokyo Olympics because of her natural level of hormone that is too high.
Oh, Seigneur. The Olympic organization has banned swim caps, specially designed for natural women black hair. Oh yeah.
The International Gymnastics Federation have penalized Simone Biles for competing skills that were judged too difficult or too dangerous for women gymnastics, while men are credited for the same moves. Let's go. Former members of the National Synchronized Swimming Team have come forward to denounce the situation of abuse they have suffered at the hands of the coaching staff and demand damages from the Sports Federation. These athletes still have PTSD, eating disorders, and concussion-related disabilities. In a letter sent to Swimming Canada in 2018, the swimmers recalled an episode where a swimmer began to vomit in the pool overflow gutter. When the coach saw her, she started laughing, and she told the other swimmers to keep on going with their training and ignore her. The coach was smiling as if she was proud to make an athlete throw up and bring an athlete to this point.
We asked women athletes what movement they have to repeat to become better. The headstand of Liliane was one of them, and we also decided to experience this one, getting down and up as quick as I can, given by a rugby player. Un, deux, trois, go! researchers estimate that for one NHL player that sustains a concussion, there's at least 4,500 women that suffers from the same injury inflicted by their abusive spouse.
Le dépassement des limites. Prenons un graphique illustrant le comportement des tissus à un stress ou une contrainte appliquée. Cette contrainte peut être en flexion, compression, traction ou torsion sur le dit tissu, disons un tissu biologique du corps humain. Lorsque la contrainte débute, le tissu se trouve dans une zone de déformation élastique, ce qui signifie que lorsque la contrainte est retirée, le tissu reprend sa forme initiale. Lorsque la force de la contrainte augmente, le tissu entre dans une zone de déformation plastique, ce qui signifie que lorsque la contrainte est retirée, la déformation est irréversible. Donc le tissu ne reprend pas sa forme initiale. Si la force de la contrainte continue d'augmenter, le tissu continue de se déformer jusqu'à l'atteinte d'un point de rupture. Caroline is going to give her 110%.
Tam tam ta 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 ta
Ok, on lance ça.
Okay, so thank you all for watching, and thanks so much, Carolyn and Liliane, for such a great screening and performance. It's so sad that we couldn't do it in person this year, but it's nice that we managed to make it happen online. Before I hand it over to the two of you, I wanted to just reiterate CAFKA's community agreement and zero tolerance policy in advance of the discussion and Q&A. So just to briefly reiterate, and you can see it on screen here, CAFKA holds a zero tolerance for the use of slurs, offensive language, racism, or any form of marginalization or discrimination. Any violation of these terms will result in the participant being removed from the session immediately. We'd like to ensure that this virtual space is welcome to all, so please conduct comments with respect for all participants. Carolyn and Liliane are joined by special guest and rugby player Rissaile Mouajou-Kenfack, followed by a Q&A. Rissaile is an accounting and financial management student with a medical physiology minor at the University of Waterloo. Rissaile is in her second year training as a student athlete for the school's women's rugby team. And last year she was awarded the Jaden Thomas Athletic Excellence Distinction in recognition of her athletic dedication and drive. So thank you to everyone, and I'll hand it over to our artists.
Thank you. Thank you. So how it's going to work, we'll be having a discussion of about 20-25 minutes, followed by a 15 minutes of questions. And just before to talk to you, Rissaile, we just wanted to share a few works that we did together, or we did collaboration. So just let us 5 minutes and then we'll get back to you. So yeah, oops. Okay, so we just wanted to say to you that guys that Liliane and I met while our kids were playing in the alley like a few years ago. And I really had an artistic crush on Liliane at this moment. And she was talking to me about her past of gymnast. She was national level gymnast while I was just a provincial level gymnast. So I was really impressed by her experience and also by her experience of as an artist, as a dance artist. And I was at the time working on a project that is called Butterfly Stroke, Relais Papillon, which I did with, is it coming? Yeah, and we are so sorry about the internet connection that just did some glitch in the video. And I suggest that we can have the festival to give the link, Vimeo link. So if people had difficulties with the video, we can just give you the link and you can watch it by yourself when you'll be at the right time. Okay, so I'm going back to Relais Papillon, Butterfly Stroke. I asked two swimmers, professional swimmers, to do the butterfly stroke in the air. I created a device that can make them support their body with elastic, acrobatic elastic. I also have here synchronized swimmer, classical dancer, and a dancer, contemporary dancer. So they were all experimented this device, and they were also talking in the same time. They were telling what they were feeling in their body, what was different in their body. So there's also in that project this kind of performing while talking. So that's a little that. I can show you just a quick video doing the butterfly stroke in the device. And few pictures of the performance. That was a 30 minutes performance where they were experimenting the device. Here we go. So now I just want, I'm gonna let Liliane talk. Oh yes, and Liliane, I asked her as a choreographer to help me choreograph this piece, this performance. So that's our first collaboration. And the second one is another we did together. It's a choreograph that she did, and she asked me to do the costumes and scenography of the place.
Yeah, so that choreographic piece was presented in November 2019 at Tangente. It's called Nadia, est-ce que ça va? Or like, Nadia, are you okay? And it's a gymnastics inspired choreographic piece, talking and like addressing situation of power abuse in sports, but also just in life in general, and also like all the subtle situation and environment that can contribute to situation of abuse. And I wanted to work with Caroline. She had already, she did a performance with a wrapping paper leotard previously, and we were interested in using that in a choreographic piece and in a dance project. So for the first part of that project, for the first maybe 50 minutes, the four dancers that I'm going to name, so Anne-Fleur de Rochambeau, Liane Thériault, Marine Risson, and Marilyn Daou, were wearing these leotards that you can see right now. And what was amazing about it is that it was very beautiful. And as soon as they were starting to move, it was starting to rip. And it was, yeah, so it was like kind of a way to illustrate like how the strength of these women, but also their vulnerability in the way that the costumes were like destroying themselves as they were moving, but the choreography was very powerful, so we could see their strength. So yeah, it was the last project we worked on together before doing this one.
And this one is the first that we all create together. So yeah. So that's it for now. So we introduced to Rissaile Mouajou-Kenfack. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you. And we first wanted to ask you, what are your first impressions of the video performance?
I had mentioned this before when I was speaking to you privately, but I was surprised. Like, I'd never seen sports presented in an artistic way. And I know that like there's a lot of content that you can find like that now, but I haven't really exposed myself to it. So I wasn't expecting it when I turned on the video, and it had like, I don't know if it was the sound outside or just like the energy. I don't know what it was, but it was very soothing, peaceful. I thought it was like a nice catharsis. But yeah, those were my first impressions.
Thank you so much. Those are really nice impressions. Thank you. The second, do you want to?
I can go on with the other questions we prepared for you. Well, we wanted to know like which concept discussed in the video, or it could be statistics or images or anything that you or things that we talk about, or stories that relates the most to your practice, and maybe your athlete practice, or it can be any other kind of practice, and how?
I like, there were so many things. I don't think we would have time for all of them, but there were several things you guys did in the performance. Coinciding, for example, when you were doing like push-ups, which is typically, it's a hard exercise. But the way it's regarded with women doing push-ups versus men doing push-ups, we know the comments, the difference, all of that. But still, like, you use this hard exercise, and in it you were speaking about racial inequity. This is when you brought up, white privilege in general. So it just, for me, the message came across as, a topic that's hard to speak about, but we still do it. Or when you guys coincided, like speaking of women, and that's when you guys started actually moving together in the video. And I thought that was a very powerful message, because being a woman in sports, that's really what it's about. Like, we can't look at each other and not work together. We're kind of forced in a pit where we have to move with each other just because we're oppressed in that manner. So those were things that I picked up that I really liked, but something that I think got to me the most was just talking about this, the pressure, the selective pressure that women face in the sport, specifically weight, appearance, and how people don't realize like the dehumanization of it all. Hearing from the age of like what, 15, you know, you look like a man, nobody wants to have big muscles like you. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm sure there's so many more people with the exact same story. And it's hard in a way that is not recognized because also the emotion of women in sport is really looked down upon. So just that whole discussion, I was like, that got to me. For me, it was when I was in high school, I was bigger. I loved eating and training in a way that made me the best in my sport. But the comments I received were horrendous, and people did not get it. It's like, why do you want to look that way? And even though I didn't really like qualify, I don't know, like register in a way, oh, they're saying this about me, I want to change myself. I really thought I was strong in that. No, like this is what I want to do. This is a sport I enjoy. Come to uni, I like dropped, I don't know how many pounds. My body completely transformed. And it took my mind a long time to realize where that came from and why it was such a struggle for me to either value my strength or value my thinness. And also the differences in how people spoke to me now. Before it was, oh, of course you're a rugby player. But now it's more like, you're a rugby player, you're so small. And realizing how much our excellence in our sport is associated with how we look versus being a man is just like, oh, you must be really fast. But being a woman, it's you must be really big. And that was something that was very touching to me. So I think a video, there was a lot of parts, but probably part I could most relate to.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yes. And you know, the part that we were getting down and up as quick as I can was one of your that you gave to us, because you said this movement makes you stronger and makes you, I think, faster.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about this movement, or if you have something about to say? Or I was also wanted to ask you, I know it's a hard question, but if you had to divert this movement, what would you like to do? Because we divert it to talk about house violence, in a way, and because we thought it was a powerful movement. So yeah, just what do you have something about?
I think, well, the first time, just like hearing that, I thought it helped me most with proving to myself that I could do it. So I know when I spoke about this, like getting down, getting back up, starting rugby, I wasn't physically very fit, and getting to the level where it was like required, where you're, running an hour on the field, very, very difficult. Of course, you guys know in the video, the fact that you were speaking and moving, I was like, that's incredible. But for me, I really didn't think that I would get to a place where I could run on the field for more than 30 minutes. Though that was one of the movements where I just hated to do. It was, I don't want to do it. When it came to practice, it's just, okay, let me do it for the time that we need to do it for, and then that's it. But realizing how much strength it brought me and how much it was important to my physical fitness and playing on the field, and then doing it not just because I have to do it, but because it makes me stronger, was actually a big determinant for how I lived through the rest of my schooling and family life and all of those things. So I think the core root of it is the fact that it's difficult, doesn't overcome what you're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I think that was my big like takeaway and kind of implementation into my personal life from that.
Thank you. Let's continue.
Um,
And we still also speak French. Haha.
yeah, well, there was just maybe before, yeah, we go on to another questions. We were curious about if you had any comments about all like the other answers that you wrote in the questionnaire that I'm not sure if it's clear for everybody, but like before we create the performance, we sent questionnaire to athletes and former athletes, women, most of them, and we took their answers, and there was like different questions. And yeah, so like Rissaile was one of these athletes who answered the questionnaire. So I was wondering that, and also like we talked about like the body image, but you already said that you received comments that were like discouraging you. And how do you feel now about your body, and like what's the difference before between before and now in the relationship of in your relationship with your body?
I think before it wasn't something that, like I mentioned, I didn't think I was internalizing people's comments towards me. But now I think I'm still in that stage where it's realizing, you know, why I lost the weight, where that came from, how to like get back to the mentality I thought I had, which was very disciplined. I think I'm still working on my relationship with food, my relationship with fitness, and trying not to let one overcome the other. But I think for now, I love that my body is able to play this sport. Like I love that I'm able to do what I want with my body. I love that it's healthy, and I want to build a resistance where it's not dependent on how people view me, but more how I view myself. So that's where I stand with that. But other questions that I had put out in our document, it was, I think I mentioned something about the women of color in sports, right? So women of color in sports, the thing with this is like already and you guys had mentioned this like various times in your video, the girl that threw up, that was vile. Like that was like the fact that and when you look at it, it's really like when you have emotional female athletes, it's seen as almost a good thing as a coach, like you did your job. But when it's the reverse with male athletes, it's not like it's a serious thing. But when you have women crying on the field, it's like, well, of course, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not taken seriously at all, but that was very bad to me. So our experience as women just in that and how it decreases our desire to just want to participate when we get older, definitely a factor. And when we look further into that, there's women of color. So there's not only what we all face, but there's also the fact that we don't see each other. There's not many like Black women. And I think I had mentioned in my document that I had come from a majorly like Black high school. My team was completely white. Like there was me and there was nobody else. And we're not even talking like, you know, Asian people or South Asian people. Like there was just nobody else. And that was just it's the awareness, the fact that women of color can participate in what other people are participating in that we don't really like dwell on. And because, you know, like nobody really thinks about it, nobody really cares, nothing really gets done about it. But I remember mentioning that I would really love for that to change. Like I would really love for there to be an emphasis in the diversity in the sport because it's so important. But yeah, those were a little bit about my answers.
Yeah. And also, like, when we had a talk with Anne Pigoraro 2 days ago, I don't know if you were there, but we were talking a lot about representation. And well, Anne Pigoraro is the lecturer of at Guelph University in management of gender equality. So she was saying that all the improvements in gender equality that she has seen through the years has benefited mostly white women, and those improvements or benefits or whatever do not necessarily extend to ethnic minorities or Black women athletes. So she was also like expressing that wish for more representation and more like, yeah, just like spreading the work that she does and her team and everybody who works for gender equality, but like extend that to also like ethnic minorities, because she was not disappointed, but also just like expressing the fact that she was like, it's not happening, so we need to do something for that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
The last question, because you also practice art. You do theater, but acting, writing, and clothes designing. So the tricky other question is how sports affect or how your practice of sport affect your art practice or influence.
Yeah, that is a tricky question.
I know.
I think in like playing rugby, for example, it's a resistance in itself. I think we've all acknowledged that like women in sports is a resistance in itself. And I think for theater, because acting and I have to present in front of crowds of people, it's very much almost like embarrassing. Like you don't want to be vulnerable or put yourself out there for people to see. But my practice has taught me to overcome those barriers. Like when I'm running on the field in mud and I'm not looking my best, and it is like a sin for a woman not to look her best, and like feeling that kind of, like people are watching me and they're seeing me sweat and grunting and all of that, it really helped me with just presenting in front of people, like being fearless in my art. So I think that's the best thing that it's taught me. For like my clothes designing, I'm still working on it. Maybe I could touch that a little bit later. But I would say like principally in my performances, that's where it's touched me the most.
Nice. Thank you. Because, vulnerability is a key in performance art also. Once Sylvie Tourangeau, a really nice coach and performer herself, she told me that the vulnerability is a strength. And from that moment, because, we were gymnasts, we were all trying to be perfect and stuff. And from that moment, I started feeling so good, so better, and putting that on my art and even in my personal life. Like I'm good enough. I don't need to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist anyway. So I'm like, yeah, it talks to me a lot what you're saying also. So embrace your vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also like what I like in my choreographic work, or like I worked with that as well, just how like, because like in dance mostly like you see people are just performing most of the time, it's like nice movements and you don't see the mistakes because they can cheat all the time. It's like you never know what they had to do or what they were supposed to do and what they did instead, if like, unless they really fall, but then it's really rare that it happens. So I like in the work of by my dance work, I like to put vulnerability, like, and put the dancers in a position where we're gonna see the mistakes and they really hate it. And they're like, we're not perfect. It's like, no, and this is what I want to see. I want to see you fail, and this is what we see in sports a lot, and we like that. Like we like to see a gymnast fall off the beam, or it's not that we're happy for her, but it's just that it's exciting. It's just how she's gonna go back on the beam, how she's gonna finish her routine, and this is what like brings the people to watch it at the same time. So for art, I think that vulnerability is also a key for the audience to like be interested in.
Yeah.
Maybe that
Yeah, I
are,
agree.
yeah, we're gonna maybe continue with the Q&A period. So just to let the audience express their impressions or question.
And if you have any questions to ask Rissaile or ourselves, please be free to ask. Maybe Caitlin, would you like to read some of the discussion? We had no time yet to look.
Yeah, so we had a comment from Christina that thanks, Rissaile, for your comments and being so open. They're so appreciated. And then Claire had expressed interest in potentially using the microphone to ask a question. So I'm not sure if Claire is ready to go, but I'm going to allow you to talk. And if you want, I can even, if you're comfortable, I can even make you a panelist for a moment, but just let me know.
I don't want to encroach. I mean, feel free. There's not much to say, but you're not missing out either. But feel free to turn the camera on if that makes people more comfortable. I really don't mind. Yeah, thank you so much, firstly. This is just super.
Oops. That was me making Claire a panelist. So she's going to show up in a second here.
Okay, sorry. Wow, I feel like I've sort of taken over. Hi, guys.
Hi, Claire.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to all of you because it's just super interesting, and I'd have something to say about every single point that you raised, but I won't do that. One thing I thought was interesting, I was wondering if you had some thoughts or if you come across anything in your research or just in the, you mentioned you'd sent out kind of questionnaires to a number of people around, and you sort of alluded to that a little bit in the screening, but around, I suppose some sports are inevitably performance, even just in the simple sense of where you do them. So to a certain extent, team sports, because you have to do them in front with other people. And in other sports, for example, I've been skateboarding 20 years. You can only skateboard in really a public space or a private space, often legally, you know, when you skate the street, but you can only skateboard outside and there's other people watching you and looking at you. And I've never really thought of that point. I've thought a lot about why there are hardly any women in skateboarding, although that's really changed in the last few years and it will continue to change massively. But 20 years ago, there weren't many of us. So I've thought a lot about that, and I've never really thought about, obviously feeling safe in a space is something that comes up a lot. But I've never really thought about how it's inevitably a performance. And I was just wondering, obviously not specifically skateboarding, but actually there are quite a lot of other sports that you kind of have to do in, you know, on a stage, so to speak. And I just wondered if you had some thoughts about how maybe that affects as well a lot of the statistics that you spoke about, including, you know, young people kind of giving up, which is something we see a lot of, obviously, in skateboarding and any other sport. So I won't talk anymore, but yeah, I just wondered if you had some thoughts around that and the kind of doing sport in public space or private space, but inevitably as a performance.
Yeah, well, I think that as women or as women athletes playing sports, it could be just like for fun at the park, playing soccer,
Going at your work, like
going at your work, like all these things. Like it's like we get a lot of comments, and not necessarily as we practice sports only, but also in our life. Like as Rissaile was also saying, it's just comments about your body that are just so common. So I think that maybe putting, for some people, especially like I think when you're a teenager or something like that, like body image is just so important, and you're so most of the time uncomfortable with it. Or
yeah, even when you're pregnant, like all people, you know, where I want to touch your belly, they want to tell you, oh, why is your belly that low? Because I'm 5 feet. I mean, sometimes, you know. So.
Or yeah, and maybe that all the comments that comes with practicing sport with other people and in front of other people might be something that I think that's, yeah, especially for women that have issues with body image, just don't want to get these comments. Also, like on the other hand, like in sports that we see on TV, there's just a lack of representation of women. So it's just, if you can't see yourself It's like, if you're, I don't know, you're not the best athlete, or you're not the best runner, or you're not the best baseball player, but the only thing that you see is the only one that's the best in the world, like in 4 years, because she's at the Olympics. It's just like, you don't relate to that person, or it's just like, you just have idols, and like having their courage to say like, well, I'm not good, but I'm good enough, and I'm still gonna do it because it's important for me, I think can be like a challenge for a lot of women. So just a lack of representation of women in average sports, just in public spaces, but also in the media and in the newspapers, and like, and I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, I was maybe wanted to talk about Radio Canada, that when they were preparing the Olympic Games, they said they engaged themselves to put an equal amount of sport for women and sport for men. But you know, sometimes, and I was really happy about that, but the problem is that it's not every media that follows that. And when you see the numbers from 1989 to 2019, so in 30 years, it increases for 0.1% every year, which is not enough. You know, in 20 whatever, 80 maybe will, you know, it will be too long.
Yeah, so now it's reaching a peak in the representation, but it's probably gonna go down very fast. And at the same time, as another researcher was saying, but is it Stephanie Gammon?
Stephanie Gammon,
she was saying that Olympics is not increasing the amount of people participating in sports.
No.
And probably because of that, it's just because like you see them as hero and you don't relate to these athletes necessarily. So like having more women in public spaces and practicing sports is important, but there's, as you said, like, I think that the fact that it's a performance itself, because you know that as a woman, you're probably going to be looked at just because you're a woman. It's just cherche le mot obstacle. Oh, en anglais.
En français, c'est bien aussi. C'est pas...
Anyway, an obstacle. It's just like an obstacle to like, go there and do whatever you have to do. And it's funny because like I live on a street where there's a lot of people passing by, and I see like some, at one point I was sitting and I was seeing like a lot of men practicing skateboard on the street, and then just like with their like speaker and then with their skateboard and just like being in the space just so naturally and like free to do it. And I was like, oh, I wonder when I'm gonna see like a girl with her speaker on her backpack playing loud music going down my street and skateboard. I'm just like, when I'm gonna see that person, I'm just gonna go and hug her or something.
So please, sir,
like,
come and do
it.
a skateboard in front of
that movement, that free movement in public space.
Taking ownership is super. And what's really interesting, sorry, I promise not to speak too much. I'll say one last thing. What's really interesting as well is that actually how different your experience is as a woman, sometimes positively, but I say this. So the other day, security arrived, I was skating a car park, you know, with 2 other women, and security arrived to kick us out, which happens all the time. But this time the guy said, oh, is it just you guys? And we were like, yeah. And he said, oh, is there no guys, no men? And we were like, no. And so, oh, it's okay, you can stay. Which made no sense, you know. So but how different that experience, you know. So yeah, anyways, it's just, and that again, that just struck me the other day, thinking that makes absolutely no sense. But it's not, it was maybe good in the moment because I carried on skateboarding, but it's not a good thing, you know. It's like it just goes to show how different the perception is, right? But it'd be interesting maybe in rugby as well, and like, because inevitably you're playing rugby, you know, there'll be people, not only the people you're playing with, but there's people watching, or like other people around as well, and that's instantly you feel more self-conscious, right? It's kind of weird.
And I maybe want to add that when we filmed the performance like 3 weeks ago, we did a reservation for a very busy park in Montreal, and it was a Saturday night, so like it was like the soccer or like football field, and we had to manage a lot of angry people, like to let them just like, and they were just not listening to us. It was like, okay, we have a reservation for a video shooting. Please leave the field. It's ours today. And like, and
Next week, we're sorry.
yeah, we're sorry, whatever. And then like, it was all men, most of them. Like some of them were super chill and super nice, and they just left, and it was like, okay, cool. And then some others like were really insulting us and really mad at us, and like and we had to just say like, okay, you have the right to be mad, but this is our time right now. We're just like in this free field maybe every Saturday, and we're just like a team of women now who wants to use this space just for the 5 of us, but it's a huge space, and just like we want to claim that space, so we needed to kind of fight for it. It's just and it was just I don't know, it cranked me for the performance. I was like, oh, let's do that performance.
And also I'll change the subject, but I just want to add that I think Maud Turcot is here tonight, and she did the really nice shooting while she was with her Steadicam. It was really just to say that she was also performing with us, as well as Gail with the sound, because it was really physical to follow us, and we didn't practice a lot with her, so she would really concentrate. And so I want to give how you say that, props to Maud and the team, technical team, because it was a really hot day, and they were working hard.
Maybe we could go on with one question and then end up with this.
One question I had was in regard to the research process when putting the performance together. What kind of sources were you two looking at? How did you pick what you wanted to include in the video? What a good question, Christina. Because we used the forms we asked to the athletes, but also some research papers, some things in the newspaper.
So it's news. It's also like we had statistics from 2014, but we wanted things that were a bit more updated.
That's why we.
So I think that like the Égale Action, these are an organism like working on gender equality in sports.
Active, Women in Sport in Canada. It's the equivalent of Égale Action from Quebec, but from Canada. Those are really good places to
look for these information. And it's like, and for many years I think that Caroline is also like, every time that there's something like in the news that is coming out, we're like posting that to each other and like sharing this, and then we decide what is the most touching to us, so that the thing that relates a bit more to our reality and what we want to express. But it's not that hard to find statistics or things that are shocking. Like I was impressed, or like, I don't know if it's in a positive way, but by the ease to find like really like shocking statistics on gender equality in sports, but just not in sports. Just like when you start like just being aware of it, or just like looking a little bit, and you don't necessarily have to look really far.
And my sister Marie-Claude St-Laurent with her team of another team of researchers, they did a research about gender representation in theater in Quebec, and they found that almost all the theater shows work of men, and women are represented in about, it's always less than 30%, the percentage they give
in all the theater related jobs.
So we are talking about sports, but we are also talking about art field and
in the dance it exists as well. So it's just something we're sensitive about. And so there are statistics, news, and also our personal experience as artists. And we work with art and sports since 2010 for me, and you too, it's almost 2012.
12, so but it all, so anyway, I don't know. Sarah is saying, do you want to read it?
I was I'm not gonna go too far or too close to the camera. I was impressed that this is Tara Cooper. So she says, I was impressed that the camera film work was done in one take. Kudos to the Steadicam operator. Also super physical, as you suggested. Camera people are often in good shape. Something we don't think about when we see the shots. Your butterfly piece also had that kind of physically embedded. Yeah, totally. Mode is in shape. You can say that.
Yeah, Gael also. And maybe the last thing I'd like to say before we go, if maybe there are some more questions, but I just wanted to say also that in the performance, we say that physical effort becomes an act of resistance, but also the fun. I think while we were watching the video, it was like, you know what, the fun is also an act of resistance in sport. And this is really important to me. And Rissaile, I'm pretty sure when you practice your sport, like the fun is like so important to continue and
not do it because you need to lose weight or because
it can be a reason that, you know,
it's just like
having fun to lose weight, you know, I don't want to, or but the fun is so important. So just guys, put the fun in everything. Bravo à vous après les Olympiques, votre performance c'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup de résonance avec les Jeux olympiques présentement. Merci Marie-Josée, merci d'avoir été là. Est-ce qu'on se quitte là-dessus? S'il y avait d'autres questions du public? Is there some more questions?
Or...
I know it's kind of late. It's 8:15, but we still have a few minutes if you want.
Would you like to talk, Hari? I'll make you actually, do you want to be on camera? Just let me know.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Ah, OK, je vais la faire en français. Je voulais qu'on me voit, mais il n'y a pas de souci. Je pose la question, j'ai trouvé ça important effectivement que les Olympiques, c'est comme la pointe de l'iceberg, mais on ne voit pas effectivement tout le travail, tout le processus qui amène l'athlète, les athlètes à joindre. C'est comme si on ne montrait jamais cette partie-là. L'autre chose aussi, donc c'est le processus de le montrer. Je pense que les athlètes et les artistes en art visuel, entre autres, je trouve qu'il y a beaucoup de choses similaires. Je donne plus des commentaires que des questions. L'autre chose aussi qui me frappe tellement, à Tokyo, il y a beaucoup de femmes au Canada qui ont remporté des médailles. Moi, j'espère en tout cas qu'elles puissent accéder à des meilleurs supports financiers. Puis une dernière chose un peu, c'est pas un pied de nez, mais c'est le volleyball de plage. J'aimerais à un moment donné que les hommes essayent les mini bikinis des femmes et que les femmes essayent les habits des hommes parce que je trouve que ça n'a pas l'air si confortable que ça. C'est un peu ça. J'ai vraiment trouvé, moi je vais revoir votre performance. Ça m'a vraiment beaucoup intriguée. C'est vraiment quelque chose de j'ai trouvé très fort. Justement, ça met je veux dire, parler de statistiques, puis en même temps de travailler le corps, de pousser le corps à l'extrême, comme vous l'avez fait, moi, en tout cas, je tombe en bas de ma chaise parce que c'est vraiment très fort. Et puis, l'anecdote par rapport aux gens qui n'étaient pas contents, qui devaient, parce que vous aviez réservé l'espace, ça décrit vraiment la situation, les stress que les femmes font face. Alors, c'est quelque chose que je trouvais aberrant, mais qui est dans le quotidien encore. Donc, c'est un peu une série de commentaires. Je suis désolée, je voulais essayer de voir avec la caméra, mais je n'arrive pas à trouver. Mais voilà, c'était mon commentaire.
Merci, Marie-Josée.
Actually, I just wanted to add something about that because you mentioned how women, like the men should try wearing bikinis too. Actually, the Norwegian women refused to wear bikinis for their beach volleyball competition when they were fined. So they had to pay the fines for not wearing what men never wear. But yeah, that was definitely pertinent in this year's competitions as well.
Yeah, and in gymnastics also, few Germany,
The German gymnast.
they tried the
leotard,
piece.
like the
One
that
piece.
covers the leg as well. And yeah, it's like this is whatever is most comfortable. I should be allowed to wear it.
Yeah, because some volleyball players, few of them, they said they are more comfortable in really
bikinis.
tight bikinis because the sand don't goes inside sometimes. Anyway, so it has to be a choice. Your body, your choice. So, but we need to have the choice.
I think
So that's it.
yeah.
So we
that's
want to
it.
thank everyone. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Rissaile, for being
Rissaile.
with us. We're very thankful.
Thank you
for
so
that.
much for your comments.
And don't hesitate. I think that the link of the performance has been put in the chat. So if you missed a bit of the beginning because of the internet connection, don't, it's there.
Yeah, and do not hesitate to write to us if you want to continue this conversation or have more questions. We're available, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder too that this discussion will be posted online at a later date. And again, you'll be able to find the performance there, as well as the conversation and guests that we had on Tuesday for the live screening. So thank you to
Thank you so much. Bye-bye,
Liliane,
Rissaile.
and thank you to everybody attending, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
That's cool.